city of Bangalore was reporting 21,000 cases every day until a few days ago. It also reported among the highest spikes in new cases among any of the cities in the country, close to 18% compared to the 10 or 12% that other cities like Pune, Mumbai, or Delhi are witnessing at this point, with a total caseload of over 3 lakh cases for a population of 12 million. It was putting untold pressure on the system. We were getting reports of lack of beds, lack of ICU beds, lack of ambulances, and lack of oxygenated beds. Also, reports and an accusation made by the BJP's own Tejasvi Surya. Remember, Karnataka is run by the BJP, accusing the local corporation of a bribery scam as far as beds allocation was concerned, only complicated matters further. Now, the city is under lockdown as of the last couple of days, and we're speaking at this point to the municipal commissioner of the city of Bangalore, or Bengaluru, who will help us understand what the local government is doing to bring the situation under control, a situation that is currently very, very grave in the city of Bengaluru. Joining me right now, Mr. Gaurav Gupta, who is the municipal commissioner of the BBMP. Mr. Gupta, thank you for joining us and giving us time. My first question to you is about the status of beds availability in Bangalore. We understand that the major problem right now has to do with ICU beds, which people are having trouble with. Could you, and the dashboard of the government shows that there are almost no ICU beds at all in the city. Would you give us the status of what's going on right now?
Yes, thank you for having me over. First of all, Bangalore has had quite a big spike. We have close to 22,000 cases a day, new cases a day. Just to compare, as compared to Mumbai, it is double the number, which the peak that Mumbai had on April 4th. And so therefore, this was unexpected and caught a lot of people by surprise. The government has a technical advisory committee, and that has projected a second wave, but when exactly and how much would be the number was never ever brought out so clear as it turned out to be. So the rising numbers obviously took a lot of people by surprise. Last time, the peak of 5,500 that we had in the month of August, September was reached over a period of 3 months or so. This time, the jump happened over a matter of just 10 or 15 days, and that really caught people by surprise. And nobody thought that every one of them would turn positive and so quickly. So this has put the strain on the infrastructure of the city. And what has also happened is the number of beds availability, since you talked about it. The beds availability in the city, we still have more than 2,000 beds available, but the most of the demand that has been there is for the ICU beds. And ICU beds, you know, that that cannot be created overnight. The government and the municipal corporation that we have, the BBMP, does not run any tertiary hospitals, but we have taken on to ourselves certain beds in pursuance to the government order. So 40%, around 40 to 50% of the beds have been taken over from the tertiary infrastructure owned by the state government and by the private hospitals and private medical colleges, and allotted by the BBMP. So in that, the ICU beds, there is indeed a kind of queuing system. The people who require them are moved up through the oxygenated beds to the ICU beds within each of the medical institution, and the availability for the new cases is severely limited. We hope as the numbers go down, it will become a thing of which will be better. But as of now, yes, there has been a crisis.
I mean, you did say there's a queuing process, but unfortunately, when it comes to the question of ICU beds, and if someone is kept in queue for an ICU bed, the patient could lose their lives. It is a life and death situation, this question of queuing. We understand also one of the major problems is that beds that are blocked are not released. It takes 10 hours to release a bed that is not occupied. Is anything being done to make the process more efficient? If, for example, I have a loved one who's COVID positive and are now showing severe symptoms, their blood oxygen levels are dropping, what do I do in the city of Bangalore to find this loved one a hospital bed? I mean, people are going around the city in auto rickshaws trying to find a bed. What should we do? What is your, what do you, as the government, what is your instruction to people right now?
So let me clarify one thing. The queuing system is not that you have to sit at your home and you are in the queue. But I'm talking about people who are on the oxygen beds in the hospitals. And yes, that is identified to be aggravating situation. And so therefore the hospital itself queues them up. So that is what I'm talking about. The second issue, what I would like to mention is that unlike, say, for example, in Mumbai and we have a different kind of bed booking system. One is that only few beds are available at our level. As I said, it's slightly less than 50% or so. And these beds are being allotted by us. But the remaining 50% beds are allotted by the private hospitals themselves. And there is a lack of transparency. There is a lack of single portal across these private hospitals, which makes people to run from one to the other. And it's only very recently that the representative body called the FANA, which is Private Hospitals, etc. Association, they have come up with a single integrated portal which will allow people to access the beds in the private quota. The second thing I would like to mention about the system here is that the beds in the government quota are borne, the cost is borne completely by the government. So the government puts in the bills of the patients who are admitted. It's basically for the people who are the poor and the needy. And almost close to 300 to 400 crores was paid by the government last year on account of this bills to the hospitals. The government reimburses the private hospitals on the basis of the number of days and the number of patients, etc. So this system has been very progressive in that sense. But yes, because of the large numbers, we perhaps were not able to cater to all the patients who required the ICU beds. The government has now come up with another scheme, and that is basically if the private medical colleges come up with the expenditure to upgrade their beds from oxygenated to the ICU beds, in that case, the government will bear a part of the expenditure. Now, this is a new thing which has come in recently. And I am told, I have been in private conversations with various hospitals, and they are working to see how ICU beds can be created. But that is work in progress. And we hope to see that because of the lockdown and restrictive conditions, the number of cases should diminish, and that will give a lot of relief to the people.
So effectively, what you're saying, Mr. Gupta, is that if, as someone looking for a bed, if I need a bed for a patient or a loved one, if it's a government, either a government hospital bed or one of the beds that the government has taken control of, I have to go via the helpline. But if it's a private hospital, then I have to just go to the hospital directly or use the hospital portal. And it's the private hospital that is controlling their beds right now. So if there are a limited number of beds under government control, doesn't that push a large portion of the population then into the arms of the private sector that is at this point charging whatever they please?
Well, the government does have less number of beds in the tertiary sector as compared to the private sector. In a normal situation, I would say 85% of the bed capacity in Bangalore, city of Bangalore, would be with the private sector, and only 15% with the government sector in the government medical colleges and the government-owned big hospitals. And yes, there are certain stipulations on the caps with regard to the charging of the fees by the hospitals, etc. But yes, you are right in saying that the private sector does allot its own beds, and that is the thing that we need to have. We need to have a single integrated portal in which all of the beds availability is indicated to the people, whether you pay or you do not pay. And that is what we are attempting to do, and we were pushing them to enter into our portal, and now they have developed their own portal, and they're saying that, look here, we let them find it out on two portals. That is one of the government portals, and another one is the private portal.
Mr. Gupta, I understand that you formed a 3-member committee about a week ago to solve the problems in bed allocation. What solutions has this committee now offered to the Palike? What decisions have you made? How will this 1912 helpline be made more efficient than it is right now?
Well, the bed allotment system, which was devised last year in the first wave of the pandemic, was put to use, and because of the severe demand on the system and lack of sufficient beds, it was that some people were allegedly misusing the facilities, and it was because of the loopholes in the system. So to tide over the present system, the loopholes therein, and to make it more tighter, technical committee was constituted by us with 3 officers who were associated with the bed allotment system, with the helpline, and also with the state war room, etc. And these people have given a recommendation, a set of 30 recommendations on which we have acted. Half of them have already been acted on. Remaining half are under progress and should happen in the next 2 or 3 days. So the objective is how we can tighten it up and prevent any kind of misuse of the system. So this is a progressive measure which is being taken up. The software, as you know, any of the software needs periodical upgradation and revision in order to meet any kind of unprecedented situation. And that's what we set out to do. And we'll do it.
Mr. Gupta, so you're saying the committee's aim was to reduce any misuse of the system, but is there any effort right now to reduce the waiting time so that lives are not lost while waiting for ICUs?
Yes, one of the very major issues that we found was they were defaulting labs, private labs that were delaying the uploading of results on the ICMR portal, because of which the proactive steps to be taken by the administration were lacking. We had built up a system which is much better than systems in other cities, which basically says that anybody who's declared to be positive, you make a call out within 24 hours, once by the state war room, another time by the city zonal command and control centers, to ascertain the clinical condition and to advise hospitalization to the patients if necessary. What we found was that a lot of people were not getting reported in the system because they were getting tested. Perhaps the testing lab gave them a result, but that was not being uploaded onto the ICMR system, because of which the downflow of data into our systems were not happening. And that system has been now set right. We have 19 labs to whom notices were issued. 3 of them were closed down also. So we have come down heavily, and now the waiting time for the results to come has been reduced to 24 hours. And after that, obviously, the call outs go, and then the follow up on the home isolation and other places.
If there is a patient in Bangalore right now who needs a hospital bed, oxygenated or ICU, and is not able to get it, either from private or from the helpline, what should they do? Who should they get in touch with?
Yes, so 2 things. One is that seeing the demand on the system, what we have done is we have created 2,400 beds in the COVID care centers. And these 2,400 beds, of them, 700 have already been oxygenated. And these have been done by the Mahanagar Palike through its own systems, by our maternity homes, and also through the COVID care centers that we have built. And that is the way you can access them. And the second thing is we have now started on this physical triaging of patients. So physical triaging of patients means that we have specified places at we have 198 wards, and we have 28 assembly constituencies, which are the 28 divisions. Now, at each of the division level, at least one place is identified already, and we are working to make 2 places. So that makes it 56 or 63 places where the physical triaging is about to commence. And these places, you can go there, and if you indeed require a bed, in that case, you will be referred. The ambulances will take you there to the hospitals concerned.
Even the 2,000 oxygenated beds that have been added, how does one access these beds? Do the patients just land up at these locations, or is there another process they need to follow?
No, we can do it both ways. It can be booked through the hospital bed management system, or they can be walk-ins as well. And the walk-ins, if they require any stabilization, etc., they can remain at the oxygen beds at these particular facilities. So
How
both of
does
them
one
are-
use the hospital bed management system?
Pardon, I couldn't get your question.
How can a patient make a booking via the hospital bed management system? What is the process?
The process is that we have 8 zonal command and control centers. You can ring up them and cite your BU number, which is BU is a Bangalore urban code number, which has been given. So if you cite that, or your SRF number, which you get at the time of taking the sample. So if you cite these numbers, your details are picked up by the system and immediately reflected onto the screen of the call center. And based on the triaging, which is done, tele-triaging, etc., you are allotted bed. So that is the way it can be done. 1912 line will automatically connect you to the 108 ambulances, etc. Or if you have a distress call, 1912 is general distress number. And if you have any non-COVID cases also, they'll be referred to 104 helplines and things like that. So this 1912 is not only manned by the tele operators, but also there are doctors sitting there behind you, and the doctors advise based on your medical condition as to what can be done and what kind of prescription will they do. And we hope that and we want to communicate through you to all the patients that most of you will not require any kind of medical treatment, but you need to be under medical observation, and that's what you need to do. If you have a saturation level, etc., based on that, you can then reach out, and if you are missed out by the system, in that case, you can reach out later. For the home isolation patients, we have every third day kind of call to monitor the health of the people and to take them forward.
How many oxygenated ambulances are there available in Bangalore right now? Do you have enough, or is there a crunch in those numbers?
We have 441 ambulances, oxygenated ambulances that are available, that are run by the municipal corporation, and then we have the private ones as well. As I see that these number of ambulances are adequate, and if there is any need, more can also be pressed in service. But most acute of the crisis that we have is in terms of the ICU beds availability, which I hope and believe will take some time to clear. Either the number of cases have to go down as a result of the prohibitory orders, or we need to create more beds. And that's what we are trying to do. We are creating oxygenated beds by ourselves, but we require the medical community to upgrade the infrastructure to create more ICU beds. So very fortunately, we have got corporates that we are working with. These corporates are creating hospitals with non-invasive ventilators, etc., which can support the patients in distress. So a number of companies have come forth, and they are setting up either oxygenated beds or NIV-based beds, etc., which can give a lot of relief to the patients in distress.
Mr. Gupta, are patients being denied admission into any hospital because they have not made a booking through your bed allocation system? In case it's an emergency, is it important to make that booking before they leave the house?
Yes, I would like to clarify that the hospitals have been told that in case of any emergency, you need to take the patients in the ER. ER is the emergency room, and stabilize the patient till the time a bed is located and allocated. So there is no reason for anybody to deny the patients. We have also started citizen help desks at 50 of the hospitals. I think that is being increased to 90 hospitals. Major hospitals where people get admissions, and they can be supported for any such kind of activities. Any kind of distress conditions will be reported to us for any remedial action.
Well, I also want to ask you about vaccines. There have been reports that people who are 45 plus and senior citizens, many in Bangalore have not got their second dose. Would you give us an idea of the availability of vaccines in the city and what your plan is for the vaccine drive?
Well, it's only about one and a half months back that we were trying to push people into vaccination. We were trying to inspire and motivate them into vaccination, but this sudden spate of cases has now led to a situation in which people are willing to and people are wanting to have vaccination. And unfortunately, what has happened is there has been a change in regime, and now the private hospitals, which were taking up 75% of the vaccination in the city, are not left with any vaccines. They have to get the vaccines directly from the manufacturers, which they have not been able to. So that has increased the stress on the public vaccine management system. We are vaccinating close to around 40,000 cases a day. And most of them now we are pushing into 45 plus people who require second dose. So we are working at these people and trying to see that second dose is not missed out. The second priority will be the 45-year people who are getting the first dose, and the third priority will be the people who are 18 to 44 age group who require the first dose of vaccination. So now why this has been done is because of the limited vaccine doses available. We hope and expect the state government has already placed orders for 2 crores doses, and they will be available shortly, I think in next 5 to 7 days. And that will, I think, ease out the kind of the shortages in the system. We also need to see that the private hospitals, they have already been told. I conducted a meeting with them about 15 days back, told them that, look here, you need to buy vaccines, etc. But except for the few big hospital chains, most of them have not been able to procure, and so therefore not been able to serve the vaccines.
So also, I want to ask you about the remdesivir shortage and the black marketing that is apparently happening within the city. There were reports that just outside the hospital, in fact, remdesivir was being sold at 10,000 rupees per dose. What is being done to sort out this problem and to make the drug available in hospitals where patients need it?
Well, indeed, there has been some kind of either actual or a created crisis in remdesivir. Why I say created crisis is that there are far too many prescriptions than perhaps what are necessary. As far as the government supplies goes, in the government hospitals and government referred cases, the state government is taking onto itself the supply of remdesivir medicines through its hospital or the hospital representatives that we call Arogya Mitras to the patients concerned. In respect to the private sector cases, the demand is quite high, very high, 27,000 doses or something like that. And I'm just citing a number. And what is available in the market based on the availability, a proportionate allocation is being made to them, and they can take it up. The issue is that some people are prescribing remdesivir, and that is not available in the open market. And a lot of people who are the black marketeers, etc., they are the ones who are trying to cater to this market. And what I appeal to people is, please let us know wherever there is any kind of black marketing or hoarding, and strictest action will be taken. Already the police and the state authorities are under the job to see that this kind of crisis is resolved at the earliest. I feel and believe this is only a thing of few days. Remdesivir supply is also going to increase substantially. We know of manufacturers in the country that are ramping up their production, and I am told by 15th May or so, these issues will be largely sorted out. The supplies will increase, and so therefore you won't have this kind of cases.
Mr. Gupta, there have been reports of the possibility of the city of Bangalore underplaying the number of deaths that have taken place in the city, that the numbers that are officially reported by government do not match the numbers being counted in the crematoriums right now. And we understand that the municipality has had to look for fresh space outside the city to cremate bodies because the crematoriums are full. Is the city underplaying the numbers?
Well, nobody would like to play around with the numbers. So numbers speak for themselves. We have two sets of statistics. One is from the hospitals, from the people who have been labeled as COVID positive, identified as COVID positive, and when the deaths happen, in that case, certified by the hospitals concerned. There are certain people who die in their homes and perhaps not certified as COVID positive and not tested at all. Or not declared as positive. So such cases do not come to us. They are not noted by the system. And there are also cases that say, for example, are detected elsewhere, but Bangalore is a big center. And so therefore they come for treatment here. And if they collapse, in that case, the deaths get counted here. There's also another thing, because of the very good system of electric crematorium that we have. We have 12 to 13 crematorium in the city, and the people from nearby areas, there was a feeling in the earlier days that you need to have only the crematorium which should handle the COVID cases, and so therefore the bodies were brought here, and so therefore it added on to the deaths reported in the crematorium, but they were not the reflected in the numbers of positive cases. So be as it may, the issue is that we have increased the capacity through temporary cremation places which have been identified on the periphery of the city. 3 such places have been identified, and we are taking care of such instances. As also, the existing crematoria have been working at their full capacity. Unfortunately, it's a case in which we have to handle the situation.
There has been some controversy into the corruption of beds allocation scam the accusation was made by BJP MP Tejasvi Surya. He has now faced questions, and he's basically said he read out a list that someone handed to him. He's not made clear who handed him the list, on what basis, and why he was reading out a list he had not verified. I want to understand if those 16 employees who were all from the Muslim community, who were suspended by the BBMP, have they been reinstated? Have they all come back to work?
Well, we have people from all communities in our war rooms and command and control centers at various locations in various positions in the government. As far as these people are concerned, they are all people taken on contract basis, because they are handling the COVID cases, and the telecallers, the data entry operators, and the doctors, etc. So they are taken for the crisis, and so therefore they have been taken to a contract agency. Now, as regards the people who were taken out, I'm told that some people were taken out or kept away from work, and then thereafter, based on the feedback received, they are progressively being taken back. But we have no reasons to believe that they have committed any kind of error or any kind of blunder in their working. And so therefore there is no reason for them being kept out of work, and so therefore they are being taken back again.
Has this entire episode affected the functioning of the war rooms?
Well, in the public life, if you are called into question as to whether you conducted your duties and responsibilities in a very bona fide manner without any kind of fear or favor, in that case you have to stand up. And I'm sure that anybody in such a situation would have to say and prove their antecedents. And I'm sure that our people who have been taken up for any such kind of questioning, etc., will stand up and reveal the manner in which they are functioning, and they will come out clean. There can be accusations that somebody has given money and all, and through your medium I would like to point out that if anybody has paid money, in that case you please stand up and raise an alarm against the people who have approached you, or whom you have given the money to. And my belief is that it may be a very small minuscule of the cases that are being handled. Most of the cases are being handled on merits, and there is no reason for doubt and suspicion in these cases. We have all been working under various very tremendous odds, working day and night. A lot of people, boys and girls, and doctors and experts, and these people have put in their life for saving the lives of so many people. And I would say that the least we can do is to appear charitable and supportive in times of their need, and that's what we have been doing. As I mentioned earlier, we are working also to see that there is no room for any kind of discretionary kind of thing. But let me tell you this, that if you are talking about a doctor, and if you consult a doctor, the doctor will have certain discretion whether you are prescribed properly or not. Now that happens in the normal cases also. It happens in case of private consultations also. And we trust and believe the doctor, and that's how it should be. And if there is any kind of malpractices in any profession, anywhere, I'm sure that the guilty shall not go unpunished.
When you say raise an alarm if someone has asked you for money for a bed, do you mean to the police or to the BBMP? Who should the citizens raise an alarm to?
Either or both.
What is, and I can tell you as a citizen of the city of Bengaluru myself, I have family in Bangalore, that people are extremely nervous, Mr. Gupta, about, I'll tell you what the nervousness is. It is, if I get COVID, will I get an ICU? Will I get a bed? Will I get an ambulance? Will I get care? Will I get dignity from my government? What assurance can you give the people of Bangalore right now as the person who's looking to the city?
Yeah, well, I think it's been a moment of crisis for all of us, for all Bangaloreans. And it's been a situation which nobody expected. And but let me only say this, that fear, anxiety, or panic, etc., exacerbates the problem that you have. And what is necessary is to maintain a close watch over the situation. And most of the people, 90% people, do not require hospitalization if you are positive. We are augmenting the facilities that we have. As I said, oxygenated beds are being added, which at an unprecedented pace. Like, for example, as compared to last year, we would have double the number of oxygen beds in the private sector and the public sector put together. Beside that, we are also creating new temporary facilities called COVID care centers. We are also converting our maternity homes into oxygen and stabilization centers. So we are putting all our might to see that we are able to create oxygen and other facilities available. We are reaching out to the best of the foundations across the world to take the help from them in these moments of crisis. And I'm sure that the voluntary groups and organizations that are working with us will be able to help the people in need. What we require through the media is there have to be doctors who are able to advise and counsel the people as to what should be done in case of crisis, how you can read your situation, how you can appraise yourself, and then take it forward. Now, this task is difficult one. We are trying to reach out to people through our counseling helplines. We are working with a very good agency, Step One, which is into tele-counseling, etc. And they have doctors who are on voluntary basis working from remote corners of the world, reaching out to the people. So, but still there is a scope for more. We need to assure the people that everything is fine, you will be taken care of, no problems at all. But simultaneously, we are also augmenting the system to see that we are able to measure up to the expectations of the people and to the demand that has arisen as a result of this unfortunate rise in the number of cases.
Mr. Gupta, if I understand you correctly, you're saying basically what the city of Bangalore needs right now is volunteer doctors to telecommunicate with citizens who are COVID positive to instruct them on home care and whether or not they need hospitalization. You also need help from civil society in India and overseas and from corporates to set up as many ICU beds as you can, because you said you have double the number of oxygenated beds that you had last time, but you have 4 times the number of daily cases that you did last time. So that will still fall short. So these are the two things that the city of Bengaluru needs right now in terms of help: doctors who will consult and more oxygenated and ICU beds. Is that correct?
Yeah, you are right. Absolutely. I would also add that beside the triaging or tele-counseling, we also require people for physical triaging. So if there are people, able-bodied people who are willing, we are ready to deploy them at our physical triaging centers. You can handle people, you can work with the people, you can advise them whether they need to stay in oxygenated beds or normal beds.
Do these people need to be doctors? What qualification do you need from
Not
these volunteers?
necessarily. I would say doctors or nurses or Ayurveda doctors or dental doctors, or I would say anybody who is somewhat good. He can work under medical supervision. We have doctors, some of them at the ground level. I'm talking about 198 wards in which we would like to take up this kind of physical triaging. So far, we have started with 28 places, and we are going to make it double to 63 or so by tomorrow or day after. And we are trying to increase it to more. So we would like people to go to these neighborhood centers and get themselves physically examined, and then they can be according to the severity of the disease, they can be advised as to whether you can remain at home with the basic medication, or you need to have some kind of support system in the medical.
Is there a website where the citizens can find out where their nearest physical triage center is run by the government?
Yes, we are in the process of communicating to it. It will put on to the BBMP website as well, and this will also be appearing in the newspapers about this notification of these places. Number of these are already operational. Number of these are in the process of getting operationalized. We held a meeting of them. We have to increase the number. We are basically looking at final year students, interns, and nurses, and a number of such people who can give us support. The government has also said that such final year students and interns can be deployed, and we are working with the vice chancellors to make it possible for them to be deployed immediately.
Okay. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for speaking with us. We do hope we can speak in about a week or two for a further update on all of the things that you've discussed. We will, of course, try and forward any questions we have from citizens to you in the meantime for the citizens of Bangalore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and look forward to working with all of you. I know it has been a moment of crisis for all of us. We have all been working, and I'm sure that you have also seen situations which are perhaps you wouldn't have imagined in terms of lost lives, in terms of panic situations, etc. But I hope and expect that the future will be much, much brighter, and let's work together for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gupta.